Roll call meeting to order. Join us for the pledge to the flag to get started. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you for quietly waiting until we reach the appointed hour to get started. Two announcements before we get to our agenda. If you did not get one, agendas are available in the back of the room on the table as you came in the door. We do video this meeting as we do all of our meetings, and it will be posted on our website. Written minutes will also be posted on the website after they're approved by the board. Any individual is welcome to record these proceedings. You just have to do it in a way in which they don't interfere with the proceedings. There will be two opportunities for public comment. We ask that after you're recognized by the chair, you would approach the podium, give us your name and address before addressing the board. And with that, we will do self-introductions of the board.
Dave Bruce.
Mark Rutledge.
Bob Brown.
Jeff Reynolds.
We are missing Ann Visor, supervisor, who actually has accepted a job out of the area, so is not with us. Still means that there have to be 3 votes to pass everything. It has to be a majority of the board of 5. And also to my left is Todd Ziegler, our township manager, Tim Buck, our solicitor, and Wendy Brown, our recording secretary. Also announced that we had an executive session immediately prior to this meeting. There were 2 topics that we took up. One was the employees' health insurance, which has gone under some significant changes. And the other was the results of Fox Van Voorhees land use appeal. That actually was appealed and found it in favor of the township. So we just got a briefing on that from our solicitor. Right, with that, we will go to the agenda. First up is the approval of the minutes of our January the 6th meeting. Are there questions or comments on the minutes?
I'm going to make a motion that we approve the minutes for January.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and second. Further discussion and questions? We should vote.
Aye.
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 5 votes to the affirmative. The minutes are approved. 4 votes. Thank you. Correct.
You're going to make that mistake a couple of times, I'm sure.
Like the change of the year. 4 votes to the affirmative. We have the treasurer's report.
I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Second that motion.
All right, questions? I would just make one comment. You'll see some pretty high numbers under low construction, and they're because of their bonds. They aren't charging anybody. We got income from it. It was bond money that will be set aside just to make sure assurance that things are done correctly. All right, we have a motion in a second, so we'll vote.
It's like a good bit of salt too.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we get to use it at some point. I'm the only one in town, but I
Actually-
like snow, I'm sorry.
Actually, we have to take it whether we use it or not, to a degree, right?
Yeah, we purchase our road salt through a state contract, and we're required to purchase at least 60% of our order. We don't have to take that, but we're still going to be billed for it, so we're at a point where we need to use a little bit, so.
Not over.
That's true.
Yeah, you're right.
All right, you can vote.
We did not vote.
Okay,
I believe we got a first and a second.
I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
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 4 votes to the affirmative. The treasurer's report is accepted. We've reached the first opportunity for public comment. We have a few people that have already been put on our agenda for that, so or previously asked to be there. So I think Randy Engel, you are first up.
Good evening, my name is Randy Engel. Thanks for having me here tonight. I'm here representing four residents who are concerned about,
Which 4 can they just?
raise your hand, Clarence Probst, Bruce Silverman, Mr. Donald E. Miller.
Thank you.
Back in January, we drafted a letter and sent it in. I presume all of you have seen it and read it. Do I need to read the letter again, or?
No,
I'm okay.
I think we've all got that letter and the attachments that were wrong with it.
Okay. So I might want to remind you that come next March, this next month, March, I will be in this campaign now for 3 years fighting to retain a well that I paid for and that I own and I consider my private property. Back in May of 2017, I received a letter from Shrewsbury Borough telling me that I had to seal my well prior to Shrewsbury Township adopting ordinance 2017-05 in June, which was later proven to be illegal. In 2018, March of 2018, they adopted ordinance 2018-01. Upon our further research, it was discovered that the borough paid a professional geologist to define what they called zones, and then if any part of your property was in this zone, your entire property was in what they called a district. And that verbiage got put into the 2018 ordinance, and all 4 of us here, myself included, our wells are not in the zone, but our properties are in the zone, therefore we're in the district. And we have a hard time understanding how the township is allowing the borough to take our wells from us when we're not in the zones, we're not being financially compensated for these wells. We paid for the wells, we own the wells, they're private property, they're assets to our property, and they're just going to be taken someday by the borough. So this letter is asking the township to consider to amend the existing ordinance for the 4 properties that are listed on the letter. All 4 of us have complied with the ordinance. We've all had the well inspection, we've all replaced the caps, we all passed. 3 of the 4 of us are the original owners of the properties and the payers for the wells. 3 of the 4 of us have had the wells installed prior to 2002 when this imaginary line was drawn through the township and the borough. And we just have a hard time with this. So we're asking you to consider amending the existing ordinance. Again, there's several options in the letter that could be done to appease us. And I think that's where I want to let this go, to see if you'll consider that. All right? Now, I don't know if that means someone makes a motion and then you vote, or second it and then you vote, or you're going to go away and think about this, but we have a real hard time with it.
It's a slightly more complex process to amend a motion than right now.
You need to amend the ordinance.
It's misspoke. Yes, it would take a couple of months, I believe. He's got to go through a couple of different committees and all sorts of other things.
We're willing to wait. Again, I'm at this for 3 years.
No, I understand.
Okay.
All right.
Just to offer a couple of comments for background, because there may be a lot of people, including some, somebody new on the board who hasn't been through all this, but, previously, as you know, there were a number of amendments that were made to the ordinance as originally wanted to be proposed by the borough. And we did a lot of that, listening to you and some of the concerns and some of the comments you had, and they were reasonable. And the ordinance was changed to basically lessen what was going to be expected, whether or not things had to be tested like water. So we did try to accommodate, I think, a lot of reasonable objections that were expressed previously. But also just some background comments, good to know. Pennsylvania and Alaska are the only 2 states in the U.S. who do not require testing and inspection of wells and of water to make sure it's pure and safe. So it falls back on the municipality in Pennsylvania to do those things, to ensure that public water supply. And many of the things that are recommended are what was agreed to after we kind of got through the ordinance, and other things, like the lack of a cap. Maybe the cap would not be closed correctly, casing above the ground, ground sealed, ground sloping away from the well, wells clear of vehicles and animals. All different things that you're talking about tonight, but that have been things that came up in the past. And water flows in an aquifer just like it does in a stream above ground. It goes down slope, so you're always concerned about what's upslope. I think that even in the last comprehensive plan that was done back in 2010, which is a comprehensive plan of the borough, the township, Glen Rock Borough, I think Railroad Borough, One of the action items on that plan happened to be number 38, was assigned to the borough and the township, which was to protect public water services and enforce the wetland protection zone. So there's a little more emphasis on it because that was identified. York County is also part of that. And some of your comments, just to talk about how courts have found things in Pennsylvania, similarly, and the solicitors there can correct me if I'm wrong, but they found that private wells are typically unmonitored, therefore a potential danger to water supply in the aquifer. There's also found by the courts there's been no indication that private wells constitute any economic value to the land. And it's also been found by the courts that closing of private wells does not rise to the level of taking. That regulation of water supply is a basic and legitimate government function. To take that a step further.
Excuse me, one second.
Okay.
I don't recall the government paying for me to dig the well.
Okay, well, let me get up.
Just so we're clear on that.
Let me finish. You know, in many communities, and this municipality has that same power, we've not exercised and don't intend to, but many communities, if public water becomes available, it's mandated that everyone hook up to it and everyone shut their well down at their expense. We could do that. We don't think that's the right thing to do, we don't intend to, but just to realize that there are two sides to kind of the story that you're telling. And the advantage you have is that for those who are grandfathered, you have 20 years use of the well, and you still don't have to pay to close it. The borough will do that, or when your house is sold. So, just background information.
Again, let me correct you on that. When the well is closed, the outside spigot has to be replumbed to the public water. There's a fee involved with that. And the existing plumbing that's in the ground and in the pipe and the electric, there's some fee involved in that too. So just because the borough's paying some of or paying the well closure, there's more expenses than that.
But we could require that even today, and we're not doing that. And you would pay for all of that. So
Let me give you Glenda for an example here. She owns a 30-acre tract of land over here. There's approximately 2 acres of that 30 that's in this imaginary line. Her well's at the opposite corner, if you will, 28 acres away. I'm using that as a round number. And she has to close her well when she sells that house. That just doesn't seem right to me.
well, we have the same thing with fire hydrants. There are people who may have 100 acres and there's a fire hydrant in a small corner and they're assessed the fire hydrant taxes. You know, that's been the township's policy. Again, there's a board here if they want to.
Again, we're asking you to consider amending this, and we will wait several months for this.
I don't know, Todd, is this an ordinance that if there were any agreement to change, it has to be advertised and
Correct.
public hearing?
It's an ordinance.
So it has to go through that whole process. But none of that would start unless the board would vote to send this to the planning commission.
Actually, it wouldn't even go to the planning commission.
Yeah.
It would be internally here and working
Stay
with the board.
So just so the board knows, if somebody wanted to propose action, it would be to send it to staff to review, then it would go to planning.
And then go to planning. It would come to staff. We would propose amendments based on what you direct us to do.
Then it has to
And then it
go-
would come back to the board
For approval to
for
send.
approval to advertise.
Right.
And then it would be another month
And it
there.
would go to the county and so forth as well.
So where do we leave this tonight? You guys are gonna think about this? I come back next month and ask?
So what the board would prefer.
Right now, I'm not doing nothing,
Why is that?
because we've followed all previous policies that we've followed on other cases, and we've set our ordinance, and we've heard everything.
Are you
before.
referring to the case law that CGA reco?
Look, I've made my decision once, and I stand by my decision.
Fair enough.
So I'm letting you know that now, that's where my position is.
All right, well, there's 4 other folks that vote here, all right? There's one missing tonight.
Any comments from the rest of the board? Lacking a motion from the board, nothing moves forward.
I'm sorry, I missed
I
that.
said lacking a motion and approval, then it's a dead issue.
Mary, does everybody have public water too? You have a well and public water or
That's
just?
correct. Yeah,
When did you hook up to public?
December of 2016.
And all four properties are or not?
And I've been at least 11 years on public water.
Okay.
So we had our well. We didn't have any other choice. We had to have a well. When we were given the option to get the York water,
Mhm.
we took it because the well
Because of
water.
water quality.
Well, the well water, with wash machines and things,
Okay.
was eating them up. So I figured this is the lesser of two evils because I get to keep one spigot in my garage, which is good for a car,
Mhm.
watering my flowers, nothing else.
Okay.
So this was an asset. I'm not saying it's a necessity,
Sure.
but it's an asset.
All right.
And I understand, Randy, and trust me, I'm going to get nervous when I start here.
No, it's fine. Take your time.
But this was just something that was, something we paid for, just something that we enjoyed, and it was convenient for us.
Sure.
We weren't asking anybody else to take care of it. The well, if the pump goes up, I have to fix it. Or I don't have to fix it, my choice. Now I don't have a choice. And I know in 20 years, something will have to be done according to the ordinance. I know that. In 20 years, I'm probably going to be dead. So does that mean I have to? I hope not too. I'm going for 100. But, do I pass this on to the next person who buys our house? And they come in, you'd be surprised how many people will say, hey, I like the idea of a well, because your water has gone down. We have had maybe 3 or 4 hours, which doesn't sound long
Mhm.
until you don't have the water.
Sure.
We didn't have any water. They were having a problem. So the well came in handy if I would have needed it if it had been longer.
As a backup.
Exactly. And that's all I'm asking, to keep it, because we've had it so long. It's kind of, we've gotten used to it. Again, it's not a necessity. It's just something that really helps us.
Mhm.
I appreciate your comment.
Could I just add a clarification? Maybe I misunderstood you. You said about, in 20 years.
But
You
we
know,
have
yeah.
it's either if it's sold or if it's at the end of
Yeah, but
20 years.
the way it's written is, the four of you that currently have your property, you can keep your well for as long as you own your property. At the point that you go to sell is when you need to have it capped. Where the 20 years comes into play, if that happens within the next 20 years from when that ordinance was adopted, is when the borough will do the capping for you. So if you're in your home 30 years, you can still keep that well. It's just those last 10 years, that you're in it, you would have been responsible for capping it, not the borough.
So the borough's going to pick up the expense to close the well if it happens in the next 20 years. But all
After
people
that, you-
that had the well prior to the ordinance adoption are allowed to keep that well. They're just not able to sell the property without having it capped.
And if you were to decide, as you mentioned, if your well pump went up, in 10 years, and you decide, I don't know if I want to go through that expense, you can go to the borough, even though you don't sell, and they will still cap it for you, as long as it's within that 20-year window.
So Jeff, I never expected your support on this. You've been against it.
No, this is what I'm saying is, here's where I'm at, is we have other items in the township, the fire hydrants and everything. It's property line. We don't base it on the house, we don't base it on the structure. It's based on property lines. That's why this was done the same way. And I'm saying, that's where I'm at. We've got an ordinance, I'm not interested in change, I won't vote to change it. So I'm letting you know that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I think Mr. Miller would like to have a few words yet, if you don't mind.
I think we had enough on this.
Yes, sir.
You can sit if you.
He just can't see, so.
Okay.
I'm good, a little bit closer.
Okay. My name's Donald Miller. I lived in Plank Road since April 1st of 1951. I've had that well ever since. And I can hardly believe I'm here begging you guys not to take it away from me. You know what? In Russia, they do that kind of stuff, but in the United States of America, we don't do that kind of stuff. Take a look at yourselves. We don't do that here. We just don't do that to people. We can't come in and take your stuff away from you. You don't do that here. I'm begging you to rethink this thing. Thank you.
Again, there is a reason behind this, and that's ultimately protecting the water that's in the aquifer. And the well is the easiest way for pollution to get down into that aquifer, but we probably talked that through significantly, so.
Yeah.
unless-
To clarify, the well's not taken until the property's sold.
Correct. Mr. Miller will have that well as long as he wishes to.
Mr. Miller is 95 years old, and soon to be 96, so 20 years isn't gonna cut, you know.
Well, it doesn't matter, 20 years ago,
But I'm
remember,
gonna lose,
just
I'm gonna lose something when you take it away, when I sell it,
His property will lose it. Yes, property that holds horses, livestock.
that I paid for it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose that. That stuff that does not go down real good with me, I'll tell you.
I understand your opinion, certainly, subject to that. Any other comments, action from the board? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. That means just for clarity, that does not move forward. You know, or is not budget code. The next item, I think we have,
Anyone else with public comment?
Anyone else?
oh, I'm going to the next item on public comment.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know
Okay,
there was
it's
an
not-
issue. I guess that's what this printout was.
Yeah, yes.
And why we got a picture of baseball field.
So, is it Tony? Tony here from, I don't want to mess up your last name, so I'll let you.
Bolano.
Say it. Bolano, looks like it's saying.
Good evening, guys, ladies, everyone. I'm Anthony Bolano, the SYC baseball president now. The organization's been in town for a long time. We've been doing a lot of work up at the John O'Keefe Park to try to make it a premium field in the county. We've been hosting Little League tournaments the last 3 years. We've done a lot of development as well. With the approval of the board a few years ago, we were able to put the dugouts in this fall. We will be adding the scoreboard this year that was approved as well. We currently had $12,000 in our organization's budget. It's been sitting there for about 6 years since I've been in the program. I took over presidency just in September, and we're trying to spend that money and make the field and park as good as it can be for premium baseball in town. We want to continue to support that. We're proud of the public and the private sector that we do of both, because we did join Little League 4 years ago, which means we are open to anyone within the boundary lines that Little League grants us. We've just extended over into Stewartstown a little bit, and just last month we were able to take North Cadorus also into our community to allow baseball to those kids as well. So we are growing, and with the help of you guys, and Todd's been a big help for me since September, since I took over. They're doing work down at Strawberry Field as well right now, I'm sure you guys are all aware of. Not so much the baseball field, but the park itself. We would like to propose that we could put a field enclosure around the large field. Yep. So this is considered our premium field, which is called the Windy Hill Large Field. This is Windy Hill Small, and this is what we call Ebbets Field, which is the grass field with a short fence for the smaller kids. But this is our premium field, which we hold anywhere from age 7 all the way to age 13. The bases can go further. We can run 50-70 or regular smaller diamonds at this field. We currently put a fence in here, which is 225 feet around. I believe that was about 4 years ago. We just added the dugouts, which aren't in this picture, but they look phenomenal and fabulous right now. They are here and right here on each side. So what our proposal is we would like to run a fence extension the same height as the outfield fence from here over to about 20 feet with a 10-foot gate for the mowers. We'd like to run that fence down the sideline, connects to the dugout fence that's already currently stops, right about there. And we'd like to do the same thing on this side from this fence and run it down here and connect here on a diagonal though. Because anyone familiar with this park, this is kind of hilly. So we would like to do a diagonal here so that anyone that didn't walk the path and walk the grass from the path wouldn't be involved in the hillside at all. The fence would be the same height as the outfield fence. It would have the same exact design installed by the same company. We did get 3 different quotes from all local fencing companies. The best quote we got was the ones that did our other fences for us, and it's Road Fencing, which is local to the York County, but there's not many fence people directly in Shrewsbury, or we probably would use them. The fence will cost us about $6,000 to do, and we currently have $11,000 in our finances. So we're here tonight to propose that to you guys, if we could get that passed. So it could be done within 2 days, the company said. So they would do it, they could do it in the winter, they could do it in the early spring. And with the weather that we have, I would call this early spring, so. It would be a 2-day project. He said it would be a 3 or 4 day project if there was snow. But as we all know, that's not really happening. So you're not the only one there, because I plow on the side. I plow on the side too, so.
There's 2 of us.
There's definitely 2 of us that aren't happy about no snow. So that's kind of where we're at. You know, we appreciate the support you guys have given us in the past. We try to be a good partner to you guys, and we've gone through a lot of turnover with presidents, so I know it's the first time I've been here. I know people in the past have come and gone, and we've had a pretty good relationship with us, and we appreciate the support that we've always gotten through the township. And specifically Todd and I have, he's been very helpful to me and to the board, and I believe he's going to come to our next board meeting to discuss some of the stuff you're doing at all the other parks so that the baseball board is aware of when things might be done, and we can make sure the kids are ready to go and have a field to play on. So.
Do we need to have any type of a diagram for consideration? Any type of a diagram for where are we going in or anything like that?
No, if the board approves it, you would just include that motion that either location to gate, is approved by.
Do you have any concerns about extra weeding or however we handle the?
No, we actually discussed this. I know it was a thought at that time when we met back in the fall. And Tony was there with us, and he didn't seem to express any concern. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but typically when he trims in the spring, he then kind of keeps a tight spray line along the fence. So
he sprays every fence at the park on both sides, and they don't really know
So
how.
it's not a big added maintenance.
We won't lock the gate either, so we're not gonna put a lock on the gate.
Just to clarify, I'm spraying with Roundup or something similar.
Whatever they use, we don't do it, the township.
So they'd be able to mow up to it
Yeah,
and not have to worry about any type of additional weed eating, weed whacker, et cetera, in order to maintain it.
right, they would just drive a little further before they turn.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other issues from Tony or
No.
from the standpoint?
I actually saw Tony out there on Tuesday this week. I happened to be out there, and him and another gentleman were there, and we kind of walked the perimeter, and I told him I was coming tonight, and to me, he didn't say he had any issues with what we were talking about.
And he talked to me since he had spoken with you and didn't express any concern.
Any other questions?
You can tell me anytime this week.
And I go by Anthony, but whatever you want to call me to say yes.
I just had a suggestion. You might help pay for it. I helped put some fields in already, and we put one in, and we sold advertisements on the fence.
We do that already through our
Okay,
funds.
makes
Like,
sense.
we're not, when I say we're paying from our budget, I mean, it's, a lot of the money we get is from our sponsorship.
Yeah, okay.
We don't, you know, I mean, we're not like a paid program, so.
How high is the fence gonna be?
The same height as the field, it's, like 4 feet, 3 feet.
Something on top, keep kids from getting hung up on it?
What's that? It'll have the yellow guard over the top the whole way around, just like the outfield fences do now. So it won't have any fence enclosures. It has the, I can't believe I didn't bring that one. I thought I printed it. And I can send it to you, but it's the same fence that we currently have, the guy that's building it. It has the wire tight on the bottom and has the cat bar on the top. And we're gonna buy the additional yellow shield on top of the cat bar too.
And I'm sorry, I didn't see from before, is that gonna connect to the backstop? Is it gonna go out around?
So in front of, so the backstop is like right here, but there's a fence from the backstop that runs right there and stops right about here.
Okay,
So about 50 feet.
to help with overthrows and
Yes,
stuff.
so now
at the bases
we're
and
going,
not
the
just-
reason we're doing it is to not only protect spectators and little kids, because little kids get hit.
Sure.
So it's a safety feature, but it's also good for baseball, so it keeps the ball in play.
Okay.
But it will, because, I mean, I umpire, I coach, I manage, I do everything, and I've seen little kids who are sitting there playing with trucks get hit with an overthrown ball. So the likelihood of that happening reduces from high to almost obsolete, other than a direct lob over top of the fence that would come down and hit them. Because now they're not going to take the bat, the one hop into the chest or the legs. So it's a safety thing too for the other children and their spectators.
That's support. Everybody else feels.
Want to support this motion?
I would love to support it with a motion. I motion to give
That's why I see baseball.
SYC Baseball, thank you, permission to install the 4-foot high fence as laid out here. By, you don't really have a date in mind, something before the beginning.
As soon as I have enough money to do it, I want to do it.
Okay, then let's not put a timetable on it, but I motion that SYC Baseball be allowed to install fence around the large Windy Hill field at their expense, at their earliest convenience,
With a 10-foot gate
with a 10-foot gate
and no lock.
and no lock. It's correct.
Well, we gotta get our dragging equipment in, so we're not gonna lock, because it's no point in the lock. The fence is just there to stop us to do the work.
Sure.
So we have a motion, is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Motion and a second, any other questions or discussion? We'll vote.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
4 votes to the affirmative, so we've approved the installation of the fence.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
All right. And I will send you the thing from the fence.
Okay.
It lays it all out with the gate in place.
Okay.
I thought I printed that. It wasn't-
Elizabeth, you just
Yeah.
Okay.
I
That field is looking.
I have something.
It's a gym. It's like unintended, because it's a baseball ground, but it's a gym.
I'll just text you.
All right, we will move forward with, if anybody else who wants to make any public comment, come on up.
I might have it. All right. I'll send it to you. Excuse me.
Hi, my name is Cindy Duzan. My address is 1849 Divine Court, Glen Rock. I'm a Shrewsbury Township resident.
Okay.
I'm here tonight because I'm working with a group called Fair Districts PA. It's a nonpartisan citizens group working to end gerrymandering and change the way that state and congressional district lines are drawn. Specifically, what I'm asking is that you pass a resolution as the Shrewsbury Township Board of Supervisors to show support for the legislative efforts to place the task of redrawing district lines into the hands of an independent citizens commission. So I'm going to take just a few minutes to explain just a little bit about the current process, why and how we'd like for it to change, and why it's important that we act now. As all of you know, after every census, every 10 years, everybody has to redraw all their state congressional, legislative, and congressional district lines to reflect changes in population. In Pennsylvania, our current law puts state legislators in charge of this process, meaning that incumbent party leaders draw lines, ensuring safe districts for themselves and their party. The result is gerrymandering, the practice of manipulating voting districts to benefit the party in power. Gerrymandering hurts voters in a couple of important ways. Politicians listen to party leaders and outside interests instead of you, their constituents. They're in a safe district, they don't have to listen to you. There's fewer choices at the ballot box. In the 2016 general election, incumbents ran unopposed in almost half of the Pennsylvania state and Senate races. When districts are designed to protect incumbents, voters end up with fewer choices. And thirdly, and most importantly, I think it fosters extremism and gridlock. When districts are designed to protect incumbents, they tend to become either deeply red or deeply blue, and those in office feel beholden only to their party leadership. There's all kinds of polling data that supports the fact that Pennsylvania citizens support reform like this. A recent survey from Franklin Marshall College showed that 67%, that's 2/3 of Pennsylvania residents, support an independent commission for redistricting. And that includes majorities of registered Democrats, registered Republicans, and independents. Over 100,000 Pennsylvania residents have signed the Fair Districts petition. 329 governing bodies, including 21 county commissions, have declared their support for fair districts through the passage of resolutions similar to what I'm asking of you tonight. This includes 7 right here in York County, plus the York County Commission. And I've got some information that I'll give to you before I leave that kind of details all of that. For me personally, this is a democracy issue. If we want our democracy to work for us, then we have to work for it. And I think we're all seeing some kind of stark examples of extreme partisanship right now that's hurting our country. We see our leadership put the interests of their party above the interests of the country. I think that has to stop. And I think if we can end gerrymandering, that's a good first step. So that's why I'm here tonight. So why now? There's 2 big reasons. Although gerrymandering's been around for a long time, with the rise of big data and sophisticated technologies to manipulate that data, gerrymandering has become more problematic than ever. Parties can use that data to draw lines that very effectively include the voters they want and don't include the voters that they don't want. But the biggest reason, probably the most immediate reason, is the 2020 census is right around the corner. It's going to be time to redistrict very soon. We have to act now if we want this process to change. So currently, there are 2 bills in the Pennsylvania House and Senate that would create an independent citizens commission composed of Democrats, Republicans, and independents to take over the process of redistricting. For the first time, independent voters would have a voice in this process. So in the next few months, volunteers like me are going to be going in front of boards like you all over the state and ask them to add their voice and pass a resolution in support of this reform. We want our legislators to hear from their constituents by way of these resolutions and support this change. So I'm going to give you a packet with a lot of good information in it from the Fair Districts website. I would encourage you to look at that information and explore other resources as well. Like I said, the census is right around the corner. There's all kinds of stuff out there about gerrymandering and redistricting. Look around at everything. After you've had a chance to review, I would ask that at next month's meeting you consider passing a resolution of support. I've also included a sample of what a resolution like this might look like. Our neighbors in Glen Rock passed a resolution in December supporting this, and I've included a copy of that you can take a look at to give you an idea of what it might look like. So the final thought I want to leave you with is this is not red and not blue, it's just fair. So I'm going to give this to you guys.
It looks green and yellow.
Well, green and yellow is your packets.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for
There
volunteering.
you go.
Thanks for volunteering.
Thank you. Thanks very much for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I had a couple of questions. First of which being, I know you said the independent council, what are we calling
They
it?
call it the Independent Citizens Commission.
Commission, the independent commission is going to be made up of Democrats, Republicans, and independents.
That's correct.
where are they coming from? Or would they be appointed? Would they be applying for the position? Like, obviously now it's elected officials.
Right.
Where is this commission going to be created? Like, who's creating it? If it, if the bill is passed, and tell me a little bit about that.
The way the legislation reads right now, and of course we don't know what it will look like in its
Sure,
final
yeah,
form,
yeah.
but the way it reads right now, it would come under the purview of there's a state office that would run the application process.
Okay.
People who are qualified and meet certain qualifications, there's a lot of disqualifying qualifications. You cannot have held partisan office in the last 5 years. Can't be a family member of somebody who's held partisan office in the last 5 years. If you qualify, you're interested, you apply. The office will vet the applications, throw them all into a pool, and randomly select.
Okay. My fear would be that there's still partisanship in that process.
And I think you're probably
Be-
correct.
Because whoever's in power, so to speak, is going to be vetting those applications and whatnot. So if they're disqualifying one over another, there's going to be 2/3, let's just say, one party, 1/3 another. So it's more likely that you're going to get more of one and less of another. But it would removing the fact that they're not an elected official, beholden to a particular party, should help with that.
I think you're exactly right, and you raise a very good point. You're never going to erase partisanship completely from any process, no matter what you do. You're going to take your best stab at it, and hopefully you're going to get something that's better than what we have now.
Okay. And Tim, currently the process, I believe, is able to be appealed, correct? Because I know a couple of years ago, Pennsylvania was...
It was thrown out by the court.
Well, they appealed, and they had to do something in a couple of areas, I believe in the northern part of the state, as I recall. It was sometime around the last election, because it created a new district in one area, and one person moved from one to another, but moving things around. So the court told the state they had to do that? Is that accurate?
Very nice of you to ask me this, Mr. Rose, but I'm sure that you know that.
That's correct. The court threw out the previous redistricting plan, and the court itself actually drew the district lines.
Okay.
And that's why you're exactly right. The last election, we ended up with some new congressional districts because of that.
All right. I like to think that the courts are more bipartisan than the other people, so that's a good
We'd like to
fail-safe
think.
in the process. I would imagine this process would remain the same. If there's still concern, it could be appealed to the court
Anything could
system.
be challenged in the courts, obviously, yes.
Okay.
And I'd probably leave that for you to reply.
Thank you. That's all the questions I had.
All right.
We left us some good information to review, so I think we will do that.
All right, and like I said, I'd ask that you take a look, and maybe next month you could, after you've had a chance to look at this and discuss, maybe you could consider passing a similar resolution. My contact information is in there. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about this.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
As well. Anybody else who wishes to address the board at this time? All right, we will move on. Next item is resolution 2020-07, which would be an amendment to our construction materials specifications manual. And
I got two of these.
I think, one of those is replaced by another. Right. Here's this latest. I think Todd, on this amendment, this came because we had some issues in
Thank you for your effort.
local development where roads weren't what the citizens were expecting, and we found out that road surface was allowed by our spec on a private road. So we said, well, let's fix that They're both homes. But anyway, what the spec does without having the diagram is it does make a better surface for a private road.
Basically, the township's construction and material specifications manual provides very detailed specs for a public street, an industrial road, and so forth. It gives the depths and types of materials and what have you, curbing for private roads, which the township has no responsibility for, but there's multiple homes that are along that private road. And the example that actually brought this about is Amanda Lane, off of Taller Road, where there was a new small 5-lot subdivision that went in. There was an existing home in there. They subdivided, created 4 new building lots. So there's 5 homes back there. It's a cul-de-sac. And the township's current regs for a private street simply says that it needs to be gravel, dirt, dust free. So you can put really any kind of asphalt down there. So these folks, built their new homes and they have what we call, I guess old school, the old binder, which is the rougher course. And typically then you have the wearing course, which is a thinner, but gives you that smoother finish on top. And our specifications did not require that final finish grade. So actually these folks back in this development, their driveways are actually elevated about 1.5 inches higher than the road surface because it's only the binder course. But our ordinance didn't require the developer to put a wearing course on. So basically, all this amendment would be is creating an exhibit that would go in our construction manual for a private road cross section, and it simply defines the binder and then the wearing course. And we'll eliminate that terminology, dirt and dust free and mud free.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2020-07.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any questions or discussion? Shall vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
4 votes to the affirmative. Resolution 2020-07 is approved.
And for the board, I'm not sure because we don't make copies and hand these out, but for those who aren't aware, this is the construction manual for new housing development.
Which is about as
Wonderful late night reading.
Yes, it is.
which is about as thick as the ordinance book, which is about as thick as the salad.
Yeah.
So we can give you lots of reading. I think that brings us to subdivision and land development. I don't think we have anything under that tonight. So we're to our reports. Todd, manager's report is first. If there's anything else you want to add?
Just 2 things. Just want to bring to your attention. Some of you I know may have heard from township residents. Folks that have the per bag service from Republic, the billing that you received for beginning January 1, they were off a little bit. Through the contract, it could have been Penn Waste as well, they're allowed to increase the contract price if the York County Solid Waste Authority increases their tipping fee. And they did increase that from $62 to $65 per ton. For Shrewsbury Township, that works out to $2.69 per year of an increase. For the per bag, so if you get the full service, you get a quarterly bill, which I think was around $69 and some odd cents, so we're up to $70. It increases 69 cents a quarter. If you have the per bag service, they bill twice a year for that. That should have gone up $1.34. I have no idea where they got the number, but they increased the per bag by $7.92. So they are fully well aware of it, and they assured us that you will see a $6.50 credit on your July 1 bill. But the newsletter, which I'm waiting for the printer to get out, hopefully it'll soon get out, but it is there now, We do have a one-page insert talking about the contract and that they're authorized to do the increase, what the increase is, what your bill should be. Just off of the York County Solid Waste Authority, it talks about the increase of the tipping fee. So we will be sharing that with the residents.
We've also discussed with them the fact that the last round of bills gave you almost zero time to put it in the mail and turn it around.
Correct, yeah, because actually the newsletter is about ready to go, and then this all came about. It's probably a good week at least. There's one individual that we had to deal with was on vacation and so forth, so
In terms
he got delayed.
of the bill turnaround, we're supposed to
Yes, that's correct.
added time for bills to be paid, because it was a very tight window with the last bill that came out.
That is correct, because the bills were dated December 31st. They acknowledged they did not mail them until January 7th. Most people that we heard from did not receive them until January 13th or 14th,
Yeah, that's what I got.
and it says they were due January 20th. So they told us that they are extending that due date by 2 weeks. So again, if you or someone else, just because of the delay, 2 weeks in getting it,
That's coming up soon.
yes.
Wait, that letter to be passed.
Yeah, so, but anyway, I just want to let you know of that billing issue, if you weren't already aware of it, and we'll have something in the newsletter for it. The other item that came up, that I did talk to the board about this, the township's health insurance, our health insurance is through United Healthcare. And our plan has been grandfathered for the last several, well, ever since the Affordable Care Act came into effect. So every year, United Healthcare would grandfather our plan along with a couple of other clients that they had. And this year, in 2020, they no longer are going to grandfather the township's plan. And I know there's some others that were local here, according to our local agent. Usually United Healthcare is very good at reaching out when it's renewal time, and we have a difficult time getting the renewal information and so forth. Long story short, without our input, they selected a plan that they felt was the closest match to what we had that's under the American or the Affordable Care Act. With that said, under our old policy, it was a community pricing. So if you were just an employee, everybody's was the equal rate as a group. If you're an employee and spouse, every employee and spouse paid the same rate. Under the Affordable Care Act, in this particular program, if you look at the premiums, you can tell who's the youngest and who's the oldest. It's based on age. So that kind of shifted some things around for some of our employees, because anyone that's greater than just employee coverage pays 20% of the premium through a payroll deduction. So that changed for some, not much at all, others a little more, some less. The other thing is, under our old plan, we paid co-pays and, of course, deductibles. Deductibles for an individual remain the same for employee of $1,000, and family is $2,000. What really changed is the maximum out of pocket limits. For an employee only, that went from $2,000 to $7,900, and for an employee with a family, went from $4,000 to $15,800. And then the other thing that's probably the most significant impact on the employee is going to be the addition. We never had co-insurance. So if you're familiar, you have the co-pay, which is where you go, you pay $20 for the doctor's visit, or you pay $25 for the specialist. That's co-pay. Of course, the deductible. Some might be more intelligent with insurance. I never could quite understand how they determine what's deductible. Some things are and some things aren't, so I just kind of go by the insurance company. But we did always have the deductible. The co-insurance was not in our previous plan, that is new. So for the board, I'm just gonna, for the sake of the audience, just real quickly, just so you're aware of what the change would be. Emergency room visit in the past was a $200 copay. Under the new program, that same visit, the employee would pay $562. For an MRI, and I'm basing this off of 2,700, it may be more, but using that number, the copay was $150. Now if you need an MRI, it's going to be $810. And if you have outpatient surgery, with a total cost of say $3,850, you know, so to fix your finger or what have you, and actually it's probably a low number for outpatient, but using that as a basis for, you know, just illustrative purposes, under our previous plan, we would have paid a $200 copay. Now, if it's an outpatient facility like Apple Hill, the employee would pay $385, but if it was outpatient surgery at a hospital, it would be $1,155 that the employee would pay. So, to wrap this up, in the past, since this kind of came on, we didn't really have any notice. In fact, we're now 1 month into the new insurance year. I talked to the board up until about 4 years ago, or maybe 4 years or so. The township always had a part of their insurance programs where they reimburse the employee if they submitted, you know, their receipts and so forth, up to the maximum of their deductible. We did away with that about 4 years ago. And so what we're looking at now is just for the year of 2020 to allow us to get through this year and to allow us to do some aggressive shopping beginning in September and October to see whether plans are out there, is to reinstitute a reimbursement program. So it's proposed as a maximum of $1,500 for employee only and a maximum of $3,000 for family coverage. We have 10 full-time employees. If the board approves that and every employee took full advantage of that or had those bills, which in the past was usually around 50%, if that was maxed out, it would be an additional $22,500. Now, what I do want to note, because the premiums dropped, in 2019, with our insurance and our life insurance and so forth, the township paid $139,000. I'm going to round it up, $139,100. If the board approves this just for 2020 with the reimbursement program, and if that full 22.5 was claimed, the cost for insurance would, for the year would go up $800. It would be $139,900.
If I may try to summarize.
I'm almost done.
Okay, no, sorry.
2 things.
Okay.
If I can just finish. Is that all right?
By all means.
So if that was instituted and was fully utilized, the total cost of the township, like I said, would be $139,900 for 2020, which is $800 more than 2019, but still $15,000 under our budget. We did budget for 2020 $155,000. It's the end of my spiel.
If I may summarize, the reduction in services also created I don't want to say drastic, but a reduction in cost for the plans as well.
Correct.
What is being proposed is using the funds that would have been used previously to reimburse the employees if in the event that they incur the costs.
Correct.
And if we incur 100% maximum cost, it would be $800 more than what it had previously been thought to be. but still underneath what had been budgeted for this calendar year.
It would be $800 more than what we actually paid in 2019.
Okay, but less than what we had budgeted for this year.
Roughly 15,000 less than the budget.
I would like to propose a motion that we accept the plan as detailed by Dr.
And that would be for 2020.
For 2020 only, yes, thank you.
Reevaluate.
Thank you for that clarification.
I'll second.
We got a second?
Motion and a second. Are we concerned about whether it's in network or out of network that we reimburse for? I guess it doesn't matter.
That's
Just goes further for the employee if they use it.
correct. If they use in-network, it's to their benefit.
All right, we have a motion and a second. You ready to vote?
Aye.
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 By 4 votes to the affirmative, so we have almost.
Caught yourself.
We have approved the plan as Todd has laid out here for us.
So thank you. I will pass that along to employees tomorrow, and I will talk less the remainder of the meeting.
At least he doesn't bill us by the word.
Any other questions?
That was the end of the manager's report, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
While we have no written report, we always give the solicitor the opportunity to report if he would so like.
Mr. Chairman, how can I follow that?
Briefly. Okay, that is your report, thank you. We have a zoning officer, code enforcement, sewage enforcement report. Any questions related to that? Todd seems to have that very well in hand. Detail on where it's going and what's happening. And he keeps us abreast of.
Yeah, there, some of those particular properties or violations, there is more detail in between the start and the end of what I give you, but I'm giving you more recent.
Right,
A lot
I
of
think it's perfectly adequate.
Otherwise, you'd have twice as many
Yeah,
numbers.
so perfectly adequate. Any questions on that? We have a maintenance report. Any questions from the board regarding that? I think you want to talk about stormwater inputs just briefly.
Yeah, just all I wanted to just share with the board, I don't know if you recall, we had some issues on Mount Airy Road at Madison Drive at the railroad crossing. Farmer's Field, we discovered during heavy rains is washing actually out onto the street, carrying mud and stone and other debris, and actually caused our storm pipes underneath Mount Airy to close up. One was probably about 3/4, the other was about halfway closed. So Presidential Heights, the townhouse is actually their swale. They spent a lot of money and time to have that rehabilitated. And then, of course, through that process is when they discovered all that blockage. And through the help of Shrewsbury Borough and their Vector truck, and then they also had a demonstration for a new truck. So with their assistance, they actually got the pipes cleaned out for us. So we have a little bit of work as far as the township to do on the downstream side, because there's a couple pounds of the sediment silt build up, but I believe I need to check with Mike that they were working on that last week, so that may be completed. But we are, I have it on my tickler file to follow on that property, because while it's cleaned out now, we want to make sure it doesn't happen again. So the York County Conservation District has been in touch with the gentleman that's farming the land and asked for a conservation plan. So we'll monitor that and see where it goes. But that's, I think, for now has been resolved.
No?
At least the immediate problem. So, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to go on the next topic. But
I was just gonna ask a question about the bridge report.
yes. That's,
Is that your next point?
yes. Yeah.
Just
Do
do we have a plan in place to address those, whether
that's
repair or replace?
yeah. There's no replacement required on any of these.
Okay.
Most of it's maintenance. If you look at the this first sheet here,
Yes.
I kind of that's information to just let you know where they were from the last inspection.
Okay.
If you go to the second page, I don't know if they don't have that number. It's 5 bridges in Shrewsbury Township that have an opening span of 20 feet or greater, and they're required to be inspected by PennDOT even though they're township owned. But PennDOT provides the funding for the inspections, and the county actually takes on that responsibility of doing the inspections on our behalf. So we have the inspections done, and it's actually paid through the state. So they come out and do that every 2 years or so. They provide us with detailed reports. Thankfully, they give us a nice summary sheet. So if you'll look there, that first, there at the top, it says priority 0, which means immediate action is required within 7 days.
Okay.
All 5 of those bridges, there is no immediate action. So that means there's no
Zero in for priority 1.
Priority 1, as soon as possible, within 6 months, we have none. Then we go on to priority 2, and it just says adjust schedules needed, but within 2 years. And they're the types of things such as replacing approaching signs or cleaning a sign if it's covered with a lot of mildew or something, replace some riprap, those types of things. And again, priority 3 is just add to scheduled work. There's no time frame, but that's where you get into sealing some cracks, and maybe there's some areas where some concrete, so there might be some parging that's required. So all in all, there is nothing serious that we need to address. So priority 2, our goal is to get those actually accomplished in 2020. We're going to fit them in where time allows. Might be approved to have a lot of projects this year, but we'll incorporate them into his monthly report. Any questions?
No, explained well, I think.
And I do, if anyone wishes to see the nitty-gritty detail, I have those also in the PDF. I'll email them.
Yeah, I didn't know, were you getting into the department schedule?
I'm sorry.
Did you want to get into this last thing?
Yeah, I was actually going to, I was going to bring that up under engineer for the 851.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. Yeah.
We'll do that. Okay. Any other questions at the top on those? We have the engineer's report, and I guess that's the next thing up, so it comes right up next anyway.
Yeah, okay. On the only thing I wanted to update the board on with the line road project, if you recall, Art was present. We met, midsummer, late summer last year on Line Road with North Hopewell officials, as well as our engineer, Mike McLean, our maintenance supervisor, and also Gary Peacock, who is with the York County Conservation District, but he also manages the low volume dirt and gravel road grant program, which is administered through Penn State. And at that time, he said, this is an eligible project, and he implied that funding would be available. I talked to him last week just to follow up because our grant application for the first round of 2020 is due February 20th. And just through conversation, he indicated that he thought maybe all the funds are spoken for in 2020, which I didn't question, but it raised a question in my mind given the fact that the applications haven't even been submitted and haven't been reviewed by the committee. That said, we are still going to apply, and I am going to make first and foremost that this is an intergovernmental agreement project,
We should push
a
it to the
cooperative
top.
project, and also I think we should have some higher priority in the fact that the road is closed because the bridge is gone, and it's a result of flooding from 2018. So
When is that due, Bob?
February 20th, they review them in March, and they will make their announcement by April 9th.
Okay.
Yeah. So, doesn't mean we're not going to get it in 2020, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. But we will do all we can to,
We'll find you
yes.
most that we can. If that doesn't work, we'll send Chad up.
Yeah. The only other thing I had under that was, if you recall, 2 years ago, we had started looking at making improvements with 3 township roads that intersect with 851 Stelz Road. Those being Smith Mill, Keeney Mill Road, that intersection, West Sealing Road, and Ingham Road. Our engineer's been working on that and talking with PennDOT and so forth. The bottom line is Ingham Road and West Sealing Road, what they want us to do to make improvements to those 2 intersections, the cost is astronomical. And the recommendation of our engineer Jeff Shue and myself is that we definitely just table those for the time being. The third one, which is Keeney Mill, Smith Mill, we still need to address that, but again, with PennDOT to get a highway occupancy permit to make improvements to an intersection with their road, some of the things they want us to do really is not going to achieve what we set out to do. So, again, we're recommending that we table that indefinitely. But we do, talking with Mike McClain, maintenance supervisor, we do believe that we can make some safety improvements to that particular intersection with some signage changes, and talking with one of the property owners about cutting up some tree limbs and vegetation. So we don't really need to take any action, just kind of looking for a consensus that the board agrees to table these indefinitely. Any objections to that?
Yeah, I motion to just table it.
Consensus?
Sure.
You're not a consensus.
Okay. All right. That is all I have under the engineer's report.
Next item would be, even though again, no written report, we always give Stan the opportunity if he wants to comment from the emergency management side of things. Our hero in that area.
I'm Stan Walters. I'm a resident of Shrewsbury Borough, but I'm your appointed emergency management coordinator. And I don't know if Todd received this email, if I need to send it, but for the benefit of your new supervisor, you as local municipal elected officials are responsible for emergency management within your municipality. However, under Title 35 of the Pennsylvania Code, you're able to delegate a lot of the duties to an emergency management coordinator who you appointed me to do that. But in order that you understand the full weight of the responsibilities that you have, once a year, and it's coming up, the York County Office of Emergency Management offers you a class. So on Saturday, February 22nd, from 9 to 10:30 is the elected officials seminar. And you are invited. The seminar is for all new and incumbent city, township, borough supervisors, council members, and mayors, as well as appointed managers, secretaries, and emergency management coordinators to attend. I'm planning on attending that, and I hope that I see as many of you there as can attend.
Where's it going to be?
Pardon me?
Where's it going to be held at?
It's going to be held at the York County 911 Center at 120 Davies Road, the Office of Emergency Management.
That's similar to the one I went to.
Yeah, and if you,
I was going to say, we'll get information.
yeah, I'll forward this email to you. I didn't know if you got it or as part of this. Additionally, in the month of March, typically the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency runs a weather-related scenario statewide and invites counties and local municipal EMAs to participate. That is coming up. I'm planning on taking part in that exercise here locally. We'll utilize our staff and we'll utilize amateur radio operators who volunteer to staff our EOC as part of that. And I'll also send that information along so that if you want to participate and be part of the scenario or to stop by and see what an operating, kind of an operating EOC looks like, you can do that. Okay?
Similar to the one that was done a year ago.
Similar to the tornado roof off the Borough building in Shrewsbury, yes. Yeah. Simulated. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stan.
I knew a tornado went through Freedom a few years back, but I was unaware of the one through Shrewsbury.
The last report we have is Planning Commission and Zoning Hearing Board. If there are any questions on that report. And if not, that moves us to supervisors' comments. If I can do a couple of those very quickly. I did participate in 2 PSATS webinars this month. One was on conditional uses and special exceptions, and one was on public service and road paved with good intentions. Both actually were pretty good seminars. In mid-January, I attended the LGAC meeting, and among the normal things we discussed was a lot of discussion related to senior housing needs, growth of seniors in our municipalities, and the likelihood that not enough is being done to handle that, and kind of reach out to encourage boards to review what they're doing, their ordinances, and how well they might be able to do some things better to support aging. And I think one of the nice things in your packet, this is a great chart that the county put together. It shows that we have a population right now of 6,667 people, of which almost 2,500 are over the age of 55, and 1,365 are over the age of 65. By comparison, in the year 2000, there were 18% of the population over the age of 60, and in 2016, that had grown to 26%. Among our homeowners, of which there are 2,207, senior homeowners, 706, about 32%. 8% of those do not own a vehicle, so have to rely on some other form of transportation. 288 renters in our township. Seniors are 83 of those, that's 29%. 16% of those are without a vehicle. There are 257 seniors that live alone, which is 29% of the households with residents 65 plus. And 142 householders 65 and over are spending more than 30% of their income on housing. That's just kind of a piece of a lot of information that is sandwiched together. But in the chart, basically the darker the area, and we are the darkest color on there in our township, is the older the population. So it demonstrates the fact that probably housing and other areas to help people age, either in place or in smaller houses or whatever they need, needs to have some attention. There's also a nice article in March's magazine, which you all get, that talks about greater and more diverse. And there's some additional information under correspondence. So there are probably discussions that we need to have. Sometimes as we go forward, I just would urge you to kind of look at the material we're getting. And the LGAC, along with others, will try to leave some information there. And the last thing, I attended January 28th, another LGAC meeting, which was aimed at reorganizing, restructuring, and repurposing that group. And we talked about how we can restructure that to add more value to attendees, municipalities, and the county, and quite frankly, to get more people in attendance. LGAC is the local government advisory committee with supervisors and other township officials that meet with the York County Planning Department and review a lot of plans, but also get into things like this. But There'll be a couple more meetings to try to redefine that, and Dave will be alternate on that group as well. So,
Mr. Rutledge, how many members do you get at your meetings?
at our meetings, it may vary anywhere from, quite frankly, 3 to maybe 6 to 7 townships that are represented, and there'll be about that many York County people. So it's not very well attended and needs a repurposing for sure.
It's good information, definitely.
The last thing, I promised I would continue to mention this, and it just goes on the coattails of one of our speakers. We're getting closest to census time. And it is extremely critical that everybody in the township respond. The data that census generates will basically determine how federal and state money is distributed for the next 10 years. It can mean about $2,000 per person just for federal funding, and then you have the state funding on top of that. So you should be getting something in the mail in March, paper that you can respond with, and also a postcard instruction if you prefer to respond electronically to allow you to do that. We want to make sure everybody's counted because everybody is worth some money to the township that helps us with our expenses. So you'll hear about that once or twice more, but please pay attention and encourage others around you to please participate. Comments from other supervisors? Everybody must be wanting to get toward the end, huh?
I think I gave my time to Todd earlier. That's how they do it in the House and Senate, right?
We have had a resignation of the supervisor and advisor. She has requested that I read for the record a letter that she put together. So remember, every time I say I, that's Ann, not me. But she has to, but I read this in the minutes. It is with sadness that I must resign my position as Shrewsbury Township Supervisor effective immediately. I have accepted a full-time position that requires me to spend a significant amount of time outside the township, and I'm no longer able to dedicate myself to the duties as required. I was unaware of this life course 5 or 6 years ago when I ran for the position. I've truly enjoyed getting to know more about the physical layout, the inner workings of, and most especially the people of our township, and will miss this level of involvement. Thank you to everyone who supported me during my campaign and during the time I served as supervisor. I appreciate your kindness. During my brief time on the board, we have worked to resolve conflicts, to clarify regulations, to improve safety for employees and citizens, and to limit the township's liabilities. We have also passed support for our volunteer fire and EMS services. We've begun work on a green action plan and make the community navigable by means other than driving. Work still to be done here is exciting and extensive. I encourage everyone to be involved in the community and to elect leaders who are invested as well. Best wishes, Ian Bison. You have a copy of that, I think, for me, so it can be put in minutes. We certainly appreciate Ann's efforts over 4 years. There were 2 years left on her term. And I would say that leads us to one of the tougher jobs that this board has faced is the responsibility to appoint a resident to basically fill the vacant position that was served so well by Ann for the past 4 years. Knowing that Ann might be leaving her position, individual board members started to think about potential prospects to fill the position. It falls upon the remaining board members, the 4 of us, of the board to appoint the best all-around candidate to complete Ann's term, which expires on January the 3rd, 2022. Since this process is new to the board, Solicitor Buck was contacted to verify and guide the board through the process and responsibility to complete the full board as soon as possible. So I would at this time ask the board members if there are any nominations anybody would like to put forth.
One question first. Do we have to make a motion?
I'm sorry,
to resignation?
Yes, thank you very much. Let me back up. Ann's resignation, actually, we got this notification earlier in January. It's not effective till it is accepted by the board at a public meeting. So this would be the meeting that we should
I'll
accept.
make a motion that we accept her resignation notice.
I'll second. Questions, comments? Can't ask Ann because she's not here. We'll vote.
Aye.
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 I would say it's with reluctance that we accept Ann's resignation, but certainly wish her well in her new ventures.
Yes.
And thank you for the reminder, Jeff. I did miss that. So now I would ask the board members if at this time there are any nominations to fill the position.
We spoke with, I believe, 4 different people.
We contacted a number of people about their interest.
Yes. And we were able to speak at length with one township resident that is indeed interested. 33-year resident, from what I have come to understand. Background in finance, which speaks to ability to make sure that we're using township funds in a responsible manner. And I would nominate Jeff Rogers to succeed Ann Visor.
All right, we have a nomination.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Are there any questions or comments from the board? We should vote.
Aye.
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 4 comments to the affirmative. We will at our next meeting again be a board of 5. There are some paperwork, oaths of office, and a number of things that have to take place that we will place in the hands of Todd to coordinate with Jeff. And we thank Jeff for his willingness to sit on the board. He has attended a number of meetings in the past, and we're looking forward to a full board again. So, thank you. With that, I think we have a real estate refund, yes, that we need to approve, where the title company gets stuck holding it.
Yes, that is correct. The request before you is, it was a property transfer that was done, if you have a copy of the deed, it's very clear on there that it was from mother to daughter and son-in-law, which makes it exempt from the realty transfer tax. However, that was collected at settlement and was distributed to the school district in the township and the state.
In error.
In error. So,
Gotcha.
so the request is, and we've had one of these, we've been here previously, and we did the same thing.
So everybody listed on here is going to have to get a refund, the state.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, I believe the state is the one they already have accomplished. They're still working with the school district.
So there's a total of almost of $6,000 and some dollars. Our piece is $1,500.
Correct.
I'll make a motion that we approve basically repayment of that tax.
I'll second.
Motion in 2 seconds. Discussion or vote?
Aye.
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 4 votes to the affirmative. We approve the refund of the real estate tax. We have a development right agreement, verification. I assume that's our standard.
Yeah, this is for 2450 Thistles Church Road. The property is approximately 7 acres. It's the same acreage as it was on November 10th of 1976. There's no records of any adverse conveyances, so they would be entitled to 2 development rights. There's only 1 dwelling unit on the property, so one would have to stay with the property, and they have one available to either subdivide a lot up to 50,000 square feet, or they could sell it to a receiving district if the developer was looking.
Okay. I'll make a motion, we approve the development right verification agreement.
I'll second.
Motion second, we'll vote.
Aye.
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 4 votes to the affirmative, that agreement is approved. I think, Todd, you want to talk to us a little bit about the E-Code 360 mapping.
Yeah, we talked about this back in October when we did our budgeting, and we did budget funds for this. It's through General Code, which is the firm that we use to codify all of our ordinances. And what this is, it's called MapLink. And what it will do is it will link our zoning ordinance to the township zoning map. So this will be available to anyone who has access to the internet, including citizens, residents, developers, township staff. But basically what you would do, this is an example of one that they've done. If anyone wants to pronounce that, go for it. Tredifin, I don't know. Friend.
I'm not familiar with that township.
I'm not either. But anyway, basically what it would do is, we have a color-coded map. You find your parcel and you would click on your parcel and then go to district details. And then you can actually, and this pulls it from our zoning ordinance. And you can get a district description, what its purpose is. This is interesting. District statistics, number of parcels and the acreage. Then you can get into dimensional standards, which is a lot of times what people are looking for. What's the setbacks? If I'm looking to put an addition or a garage up or something like that. So it gives you that kind of detail.
This is going to summarize what type of...
Yeah, so it's a snapshot of
requirements
the requirements under the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
And then it gets into the land uses. So these are ones that a group accommodation for this particular township is a hotel. And then of course you can, I guess it doesn't detail that, what it did. Oh, here. Gives you the definition and so forth. So like food and beverage sales, which is restaurant, and you hover over that. So it gives you that type of detail. And again, what would happen is we have the upfront cost. There is an annual maintenance fee, which is $1,495. We pay a maintenance fee for our code book and everything else. But what would happen anytime we do any kind of amendments to our zoning ordinance, it would automatically update in this as well, because it's all linked.
So as soon as
At no additional cost.
Correct.
So as soon as we update that ordinance, it would appear.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. So the total cost to get it up and going, which includes, we have to get a lot of data from our engineer as well as the county and the assessment information and so forth, is here. I just had it. $6,490.
Just about 65.
Yeah, $6,490, of which $1,495 is included in that price for the first year maintenance.
Okay. And is that calendar year? Is that a year from inception?
Year from inception.
Okay. How long is it going to take for us to get our information into it so that it'll be up and available to the public?
I don't have an exact date on that.
Okay.
But what's helpful is they already have all of our zoning information. They have our zoning map. So it's a matter of them pulling information from your county assessment office, which I don't anticipate should be a problem, because our engineer can pull that pretty quickly too.
Okay.
I would guess probably max would be 2 months so everything's up and running.
We budgeted for this.
We did
Yes.
budget this, yes.
All right. I'd make a motion to
Proceed with the.
authorize the E-Code 360 map link visual zoning service, which was previously budgeted for this calendar year.
A second. Any questions? Certainly seems to be a very worthwhile tool for all of us here, but actually for the
We
citizens.
get a lot of questions,
Yeah.
questions.
This way everybody probably will look at it.
It's going to make it easier for us to answer their questions in the moment, but also
Well, at least give them an idea initially, it won't give them every nitty gritty detail, but it'll give them the basics.
Give them a good place to start, and you'll go from there.
We shall vote.
Aye?
Aye. 4 votes to the affirmative, so we've approved the purchase, and the first year is on use of the map 360, code 360. We just won't give that long description. All right, and I think last thing in this section, in new business, is the architectural design services regarding potential of a new township facility.
Yeah, for those that are in the audience, I think most faces are, not too many new ones, but just quick background. Back in budget time already, we had an assessment done last year of the maintenance building down Hangtown building, Hangtown Park. That building was built in '76. It's in great need of some major renovations, both structurally and energy efficiency and so forth. So we had an assessment done of that building to either keep the footprint that we have, bring it up to standards, bring what we have up to standards, put it on a 20-foot addition, which is what we need more than anything because we're really out of space down there, or replace that facility with the same basic footprint of what's there with that 20-foot addition. And when we got the assessment back and the cost estimates, if you're going to do the addition, it really made no sense not to do the new building. With that in mind, what the board then decided at budget time is we did budget 2020 to have an architect to start to prepare a design and so forth for a building to be located the same basic area. Unfortunately, that ball field wasn't even used last year at all, so we would actually keep the existing maintenance building in place as a new facility would be constructed behind it on the ball field. But when, I don't want to say twist, but something that came up during that whole process was the board has indicated that if they do that and proceed with that, we're going to move the administrative offices down to that same location. So we'd have to put a piece on that for administrative offices. This building, for those that are familiar with it, there's an entire second floor that has never been used since the township bought it in 2006. And then this first floor we probably utilize, well, this room gets used 3 times a month, and then the rest of the building, I'd say about 40% of it, if that, is utilized on a daily basis. So there's more than 50% of this building that's not been utilized, but we still have to maintain it. We have 8 heating, cooling units for this building, so they all have to be maintained.
And hopefully they generate income to help.
Right, and the idea would be that to sell this to offset the cost of the new administration portion. So, but the first phase is to just do some designing and get some real solid construction figures before the board would decide if they would like to proceed or not in 21 next year. So anyway, this is on the agenda. The firm that did the assessments for us and so forth is putting together a proposal to actually do that work. They weren't comfortable. They wanted to make sure they had good solid numbers to provide, and we just felt it's cutting a little short. And I said that's fine. We'll address it in March.
So we'll just table it till
Yeah,
next
so we'll just table it until March.
Okay. All right, you have some assorted correspondence in the package. I don't know if there's any questions regarding any of that. Part of that correspondence relates to the aging issue as well in the county. So we would come to opportunity for public comment before we adjourn the meeting. Is there anybody here who would like to address the board at this time? Come on up, Jeff.
Good evening. I'm Chad Myers, 11820 Vine Road in Freedom. I came here tonight just with one question with respect to the Line Road Bridge replacement. that was if there was any recent communication with North Hopewell Township, and if so, what was their response, you know?
The only communication I have is I provide them with an update from our engineer's report, where we're at in the process, and the only response I got was like, sounds good, thank you. But we haven't, but there really hasn't been a need, because we don't have any plans or designs that we need anything from them at this point, so.
We just want to let them know we're spending money and.
Yeah, we want to let them know that we're still moving forward and so forth.
Right.
Yeah, so they don't forget about it.
Right, yeah.
And in light of Mr. Ziegler's comments earlier, another question arose in my mind, and that would be if any consideration has been given to the fact if there would be no grant money available, how would that affect the timeline and the agreement with North Hopewell Township? Has that been discussed or considered, or?
Just basically, as far as we know, I'm not sure that where Hopewell Township would be. We haven't, discussed that very thoroughly with them. I think that we're relying on liquid fuels for the balance. They are not, as far as we know. Assuming we get a grant, the balance of it, we think they're taking out of their general fund. So that's something that has to be, that's up to each township how we do that. But to answer your question, I don't think we have specifically addressed the impact if we should be refused on the grant. Then we would have to sit with North Hopewell as well, make sure they've got the money to cover it. So we're going to be positive and assume we're going to. We'll know by,
We'll know by April 9th.
Yeah, but in the meanwhile, we're proceeding with whatever we can do in engineering and design. It's not lost time.
Yeah, it's still moving forward.
Right, so
Such as permitting.
Permitting, design.
EP permitting.
Correct, all that's still going to continue to move forward.
Okay.
So it's not, this grant application, and what I was told informally is not going to slow that process up, so.
So if I understood your response correctly, Art, in lieu of grant funding, if there is no grant funding, Shrewsbury Township is still financially committed to the project.
I can't speak for the board with that.
Okay.
We have not really looked at that.
Understood.
Contingency, I think, is that fair to say? I mean,
Understood.
we're going to be, we have pretty strong assurance we would get the grant. So that's what's a little surprising.
Sure.
And since the application process hasn't even been opened yet, it's a little confusing as to how those funds could have been already allocated.
But I understand your concern.
So-
I'd be asking the same question if I were you.
I mean, we're going to rate the grant strong to make them, typically government agencies that are giving away grant money want to see intergovernmental cooperation.
Exactly.
Where there's multiple municipalities working together. So I think that should be a major plus for us. The other thing I think should be a major plus is that this funding is requested for a road that has been out of service since August of 2018. And it needs to be open or we wouldn't be pursuing this project. And it's a result of a flood, not because of neglect by the township or anything. So I can't imagine that those two major factors would be overlooked.
In the event that
up the list, but yeah. So we're going to do all we can though.
If the event it wasn't granted, can you go in the following year? Probably no. In other words, continue, but then go back in and say, hey, you denied our grant last year, we had to proceed, but we're coming and asking for reimbursement.
I do not know that.
That's something to look into too. I don't think our intent is to leave anybody stranded, we just honestly haven't addressed.
Sure, I know I'm definitely not accusing the board of any intent in that way. I just was a little concerned when I heard Mr. Ziegler's comment earlier.
We forgot to ask you to leave.
I was a little concerned when I heard it, but that's why I shared it with the board. When you've heard us talk about, cost estimates for repairs and so forth from the flood, that was assuming no grant money for anything. So, I mean, we've always, but again, if this occurs, the board's gonna have to look at, funding sources
We
and
may
so
have
forth.
to,
So,
we may have to alter some priorities.
yeah, we may have to juggle some projects around.
But that would be our intention, we want to see how we.
Because this was built into the budget, I presume, for this year.
With the expected grant and
With-
With the, okay, that's what I'm
the
trying to-
shared costs. of-
Absolutely, it's in the budget, yeah.
Yeah, it's-
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else would like to address the board before we close up for the night? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Ayes, adjourned. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate